The other candidate that is running as a petition candidate, Dennis DeCiabo, could not be with us tonight, but he does have another opponent in this race in November. In House Seat 105, I think we've got a total of probably 6. Am I right on that? No, I believe it's 6. And we'll start with Bill Wiegand. He's House Seat 105. And Kevin Hardy. And Liz Helen. I'm going to give you just a very, very brief little background on all of them, and then they'll tell us a little bit about themselves. Mike Rael down there, everybody knows him as Mr. Pizza Man, Mr. Rotali. Mike came, he and his family, to Horry County in 2005. He's married to his lovely wife, Carrie, and they have 3 beautiful daughters. He's had tons of business and executive experience in the private sector and public sector, and we appreciate the hard work, Mike, that you put forth in this effort. We have Bill Wiegand down there. Bill is, I guess he's been here in Horry County and in Conway most of your life. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, ma'am.
And everybody knows his mother, Joanne Wiegand. She was kind of the founder of the Republican Party here in Conway. And Bill has worked many jobs in growing up here in Horry County. He worked with Coal Dairies, Coastal Coca-Cola, and he's currently in the real estate business here in Horry County that he took over when his father passed away. I think also, Bill, you're an EC. Is it East Conway?
No, Conway too.
Conway too. And we're so glad to have you as a candidate in this. And Kevin, you're a lifelong resident here of Horry County. We came up close. And you're currently a real estate agent with the Waccamaw Land and Timber Company. You are a former member of the Horry County Council. You were a member from 2001 to 2008, past vice chair of the Horry County Council, and past vice chairman of the Horry County Public Safety. You also were a past board member of the Waccamaw Economic Opportunity Council. And then we've got Ms. Liz, and Chris, she is the petition candidate for seat 105 as well, born in Horry County in Conway. And she has actually served 3 terms as Horry County Council in District 8. And she served 2 terms as the Horry County Council Chairman. And I didn't have those dates. Do you remember those dates? Chairman.
03 to 10.
Okay. And she's currently a member of the Conway Chamber of Commerce, and she works with the Conway Historic Society for just a few things that she does there. And then we have Mike Connick. Mike has lived in Horry County, I believe, since 1995. Okay. And he currently owns Advanced Theater Audio.
That's close enough.
Okay, for 10 years. And he's currently EC of the Daisy Precinct, and he is also currently Vice Chair of the Horry County GOP since April of 2011. Very good. Give them all a hand, guys. Okay, we're going to start off and give you a minute or two, Mike, to do your opening statement and just tell us what you would like us to know about you to start off.
Well, I've met most of you previously. And I'll try it without that. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
No? All right, well, let's try it with this. I've met most of you through the restaurant and over the last maybe 6-8 months through this process we've been through. And I call it politics, that process. And I've been, as I think with the rest of us, through some things that we have not seen before. The being removed from the ballot, the being put back in position to get back on the ballot, the efforts we've had to go through to get that done. And rather than talk about myself, I want to tell you what I've learned. In biblical terms, we talk about the church. And the church is not a building. It's not bricks and mortars. It's the people. And I think all of us understand that. For the last 6 months, this process has taught me what politics is about. It's not about the people running the government. It's not about the people that are making the decisions for us currently. It's not about great buildings in some place. It's about those of us that are out here every day trying to figure out how to make this work and make this a better country. And we've lost our way. But what I've learned, which has really touched my heart and made me determined to see this through to the end, is that the people out here, the people that are serving this country in various ways, whether it's just helping in our communities, serving overseas, their heart's still in the game. They still want this to work. They still believe in what our founding fathers put together. And what I've seen from every one of you that's helped get a single signature, we ended up with over 1,400. To those that are just helping out in various ways, at the restaurant we've done some things, going out in the public, talking to the people. All of you have stepped up and volunteered your time and your efforts and gave from your heart. And that's what the politics should be about. That's what serving the public should be about. And I think we've lost our way there. And I'm determined to bring that back in at all costs. And if I don't win this at the end of the day, then it wasn't meant to be. But if I do, I believe it's because all of you stepped up to the plate and gave it your best. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, it's your turn.
Good evening. I've been working here in Horry County for quite a while, and I've seen businesses come, I've seen them go, I've seen good people, they're actually hard-working people that are real proud of what they're doing. They want to keep what they have. I've seen government get so big that we can't afford it anymore. That's a shame. I mean, it's busting at the seams, and here we can't pay for it. Then I've seen, our country go to where it is right now. What's holding it together was Christianity and history. And that's been taken out of our schools right now. Not only that, the school district, we got to put that back in. We got resources in our community that we can be using. Railroads, these highways, we need to open these highways. We need to look at the people that are around here, the immigrants. We need people that need to be here. They need to have a green card to be here. We need the right people here. And that's what I'm all about. I'm about fair tax. We get fair tax on board. We'll bring that business back to our country, this left, because they can't make it here. I mean, we're paying 35% tax now, That's what the businesses are paying right now. That's not right. We're running the business away. And here our economic development people are trying to bring it back in the best they know how. And they're doing all they can do. What have y'all heard from George Hearn that he's done for our community, for Horry County? Can you write it on a piece of paper? I'll rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Kevin.
Good evening. I want to touch a little bit on what Mike and Bill said. I'm for less government. I served 8 years on county council, and somebody asked me a while back, how many ordinances did you initiate? How many did you get passed? And I was talking to somebody up in Lawrence, well, Mr. Paget up in Lawrence a little while ago. If we pass a law in Columbia, I think we need to take some of the laws off the books that are there that are worthless. I mean, there's so many laws out there, and I'm for less government intrusion. I don't want people telling me what to do. I don't like government running my life. If you try to open a business, Bill was talking about the businesses going out of business, go try to get a business license, get your zoning, get your permits, get hooked up with Grand Strand Water and Sewer, go through all of that and see how much money you got at the end of the day. You need to be rich to get started. And this country is all about the businessman being able to start a business and succeed and work. When you work hard, you succeed. But there's so many regulations, rules and regulations out there, it's almost impossible to get started. And we need jobs in this county. And I'm all for bringing jobs to this county. We need infrastructure. We got to have roads to get the product in and out. We got to have ports. And I'll be very supportive of that and creating jobs for this county.
Thank you.
thank y'all for coming this evening. It's not always easy to get here in the face of a thunderstorm. You don't know how terrible it's going to be, but I appreciate you coming out. This is home to me. How many of you were born and raised here? We're always in the minority these days. But this is home here, and I am passionate about my home county. I was on the county council for 16 years. I have a very good perspective of how county government works, of how government in general works, because I was there for 16 years. And I have a very good understanding of what Horry County needs from Columbia. One of my frustrations has always been how little response to the county council we got from our guys in Columbia. And there were always guys, which is one of the reasons I'm running again. But I know the needs. I know how little response we've gotten from the ones we keep sending to Columbia. And I always thought if I ever go to Columbia as a representative, I will work hand in glove with the local governments, because that's the way it ought to be. It's not rocket science, but we've not had that. And so I will be a good conduit between what goes on in Columbia and what goes on in the local area. And it will be an easy fit because I'm very used to working with the county council members, and I look forward to doing that again, just on a different level.
Liz and Mike.
Hello, everybody. Just want to thank you so much for coming out this evening. I hope we're not a little premature since we have not all submitted our petitions yet, but I like the opportunity that we get a chance to at least talk to you folks so you can see who is involved in this process. Personally would like to thank all the folks that have been out there getting my petition signed and for the efforts you put forward. One of the things that I think is a real blessing with this whole process has been the fact that I've been working to get Kevin's signatures and Bill's and Liz's that for the first time probably in the history of our county and possibly the state, the candidates have been working with each other to get each other's names back on the ballot. So I think that is really positive. And with all the negative things that have occurred, I think that just shows you how strong we are as Americans, as citizens of Horry County as well. So I just wanted to just thank all of these guys and all you folks that have helped us accomplish this. I did not think I would be running against these people. I announced that I was going to be running prior to everybody else, that I was going to run against George Hearn. So this is kind of a little different. The guy that I thought I was running against is not even sitting up here tonight, so that's been a little different. And the reason that I wanted to get involved is I don't believe in career politicians. I did not get into this to be a politician. If I make it to Columbia, I'm going to work as hard as I can for term limits. I think if we have term limits for governors, term limits for our president, then our legislators, they don't need to be up there any longer than 8 years as well. And I think the whole system has been kind of set up so that the longer you're there, that's when you get your committee assignment. So there are a lot of things that I think that we need to change. I agree with Ms. Liz that our representatives from Horry County need to be working with county council here. We need to be meeting regularly with county council so that we can actually represent properly in Columbia what the folks here in Horry County need. That being said, we are going up to Columbia to represent the state. We're not going up there particularly to bring home the bacon to Horry County. And I think that that is something that we also need to bear in mind. We're going up there to do what's best for the state and everything that we can do for this county to bring jobs here, to get the port in Georgetown redone, to get some form of Interstate 73. Those are the things that we need to be working on. Also with the college, for when we have folks that graduate out of these colleges, they have to move away from here. These are all things that we need to work on here locally, but the main thing that I wanted to say is that we need to work for the benefit of South Carolina and also for Horry County. And I just thank you all for your time.
The first question, I'm going to just ask a brief answer since Mike did mention term limits, and we'll start with Mike Lyle down there. What about term limits, Mike? Are you in favor of term limits or not?
I think we need term limits. You know, all the rules and laws in this country are written because something was broke.
and then we have to fix, and that's why we keep writing things in place. Right now it's broke, and so we need to shorten the time that people are in there and get some fresh minds and some fresh blood in there, absolutely.
Okay, how about you, Bill?
I believe the term limits, you see what we got in Congress now. Okay?
Thank
I'd like to
you.
say anything else.
Okay, and Kevin?
I pretty much set my own term limits. I served two terms on county council, and I think you need to have fresh blood in there. You know, the downside of that, a lot of things you hear, or a lot of people say, you lose seniority when you're not in a senior position in the legislature. You don't get the clout that a new person has. So I think it's a responsible thing to do for individuals to set their own term limits.
Okay, Liz?
I believe in term limits also, and 8 is a pretty good number. I spent 8 years as a district rep on county council, 8 years as chair, and if I'm elected for this position, no more than 8 years, and I'll come home.
Okay, Mike?
Well, I'll just reiterate what I just said. The way the system is set up in Columbia and also in Washington is the longer you're there, that is when you get a position on a standing committee. The first year we're there, we'll be lucky if they show us where the bathrooms are. The second year we're there, we'll be trying to get reelected. That is fundamentally wrong. That's not what our founding fathers had set up. That's not what they planned. We were supposed to go up there, do our work, vote as best we could, and come home and go back to work here at our homes. So yeah, I believe that we need to push strongly for term limits. And not only that, that will also, we have to readjust the way that these chair assignments are given out. If we keep the situation the way it is right now, we're going to have people up there for 30, 40 years. And, you know, that's just not what our founding fathers designed for this country.
Thank you. I am assuming that everybody sitting up here is in favor of to bring, to better the roads. Is everybody in favor of I-73 in some capacity? All right, the question would be, if you are in favor of I-73, would y'all choose to follow the Highway 9 on the northern pathway to Dillon County, or would you be in favor of improvements of 501? And we're going to start with Bill Wiegand first on this one. Want to know which you're in favor with and why. What are your takes on that? What would be the best route to come in? 501, improve it, go number 9 to Dillon County, and why? And then we'll talk about some funding on it.
Number 9's already got a 4-lane highway out. We need to bring it to 501, 319 like it was originally planned. We've got 22 there already set. Why spend any more money? We'll spend enough money building I-73 the way it is. That's one thing we don't have that business wants coming in this area, is the interstate.
How would you fund it? Or we'll get to the funding in a minute. We'll go on down. Okay, Kevin?
You speaking of I-73 or just improving 501 or number 9?
In place of I-73, would you think that we could just improve 501 to accommodate that? Or should we take the 9th route going out toward Dillon County?
Well, I'm not in favor of replacing I-73, the route is there now, which will tie into Highway 22 to 31. I think 501 definitely needs to be improved. I think that interchange at Carolina Forest, we talked about it before, there's got to be some way, the more stoplights. 501's in good shape, it's just too many stoplights, too many people. We need to be able to have some overpass at Carolina Forest would help. And as far as number 9, I think four-laning it on in at a later date would be good. Neither one of those things will replace I-73 in a route that's already designated for it. I think it's appropriate. And
so you are saying you in favor of a strict I-73 that's on the books and being proposed rather than...
As far as the interstate access, it's been studied, and that is probably the cheapest route that we can go to get interstate access. But I'm also in favor of improving 501 and 9 at a later date, because once you get all those people here, they got to move around. And we got 31 and 22 with 501. It's been like that all my life trying to go to to Myrtle Beach, and this is one of her home.
Okay, thank you. And Liz?
I also like am in favor of the route that has been chosen for I-73. I think that does the job better than expanding the width of 501 or continuing to widen 9 all the way through Dillon County. It's going to be tough to find the money for it, but I think that's the best idea. And as Kevin said, it was studied and studied and restudied, and they found the best route that would work. And I think it would be more trouble at this point to change it than to keep on pressing on with what we have.
Thank you. Mike?
I have to disagree a little bit. I think that there have been studies, and I also know that there are folks that it's going to benefit greatly by having this highway come through their property. I think that in this point, where we're at with this county and with our country, that we ought to just basically pump the brakes a little bit and revisit what exactly it would cost to go through 501 and to add that on. From what I understand, the bulk of our tourism comes from up north, so I can understand the logic in having it going up through Dillon County. What I don't understand is why we have a road that's already, we pretty much got everything until you get to Aner. Now that would be where you would have to basically circumvent Aner to add on to 501. So my personal feeling on it is I think there have been mixed reviews on whether or not it's going to be beneficial to go with the brand new road or whether we should revisit adding several lanes to 501. So that's my position on that. I don't think that the jury's in totally on that. I know there have been a number of studies, but I also I haven't exactly explored this thing to the nth detail, but I believe that there are several options that we haven't exactly explored. And as far as financing it, I think a lot of the money that we send to Columbia, we need to make sure it stays here. From what I understand, it's with the traffic patterns and whatnot, since we don't have those year-round, it's based on traffic volume, and Kevin or Liz might be able to give us a little bit better information on that. But a lot of the things that we are not getting funding for here in Horry County are because of our population that is only here for the summer. So I think that that should just be relooked at, and we should explore those.
And we will talk funding, but we'll hear from Mike Rael first on what he thinks about 73, and then Kevin, you have a question.
I think too many times in life we're given this or this option versus really getting out there and doing our homework and figuring out what is the best way to do it. Being here for the past 7 years, 501 gets worse every year. We keep dumping more and more traffic onto it, and we're at our limits. Now we're putting lights in to try to help that situation. It's only making it worse. I do have an engineering background. I'm used to sitting down from scratch and building something and looking at options and throwing in a lot of alternatives to try and figure out what is the best way to do this. I think 501 has more on it than it needs. As far as Route 9, again, I'd like to take a look at this. I don't think we should make a decision based on the fact that, well, in the past somebody got involved and they're going to benefit from this, so we should avoid that. Well, whether they benefit or not, we need to pick the best route. The things that have been done in the past have been done. We need to start doing what's best for all of us as the taxpayers, the ones who see the benefit from the tourism, and the ones who see the downside when all this traffic sets here as a parking lot. So I think we need to take a deep look at this thing from the start. It doesn't need to be several years to study a project like this. It can be done in months. And people don't want to hear that, but I think we really need to go back to the beginning. What are we trying to accomplish? What do we have available to do it? Let's get it done.
Okay, Kevin, you have any question before we get into the funding aspect?
Just wanted to follow up a little bit. The route for I-73 has been set and funds already designated for that route. You don't get funds designated for something you want to study, other than funds to study. The route's already been determined. There's work going on that road now in Latta. There's an interchange being built in Latta. And I'm not sure how many millions of dollars that have already been funded for the route that we have now. So if we're going to start shifting routes, we're going to throw ourselves out another 10 years while we do studies to figure out if somebody's benefiting by having the road go by there or not. If you want to get funded for it, it's a little late in the game to start thinking about another route.
Okay, on that point, you're the next one up to talk about funding, and I think Bill had a question. Do you want to ask Bill before we go to funding?
One quick thing I want to ask. How many of you here have been to Fort Lauderdale, Florida? They build bridges over intersections. They have frontage roads. They have a place where you can turn around. Why can't we do this on 501?
They have more than one. The bridge over.
That's it. Keep the thing going. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Kevin, let's just take no more than a minute apiece and give us some ideas. I know there's some funding that is set aside, but it's going to take a lot more funding to get this road complete when it does get built. Do you have any ideas, proposals as to how we'll secure that funding?
The state's going to have to provide funding as well as federal funding, but just like we built 22 and 31, when those bonds are paid off with the accommodations tax money from the beach, that's a funding mechanism for it. No, that's not going to pay for I-73, but that'll help down the road. We got to get the bonds paid off that build these roads first. I've been to Washington several times lobbying for money. I went with the chamber a couple times to get money. Congressman Brown allocated money for I-73, and our own delegation has got state funding from it, and that's what we're going to have to continue to do. And it's not going to be an easy fix. I don't think a toll road is an answer. I think we need to secure funding.
Okay, Liz.
I too went to Washington, and although there's an awful lot of money there, it sure is hard to squeeze out of them when it comes to South Carolina. But they just recently, I believe, re-upped the highway bill this week, or maybe the end of last week, and I'm not sure how that's going to filter out. I do know that I-73 has been designated a road of national significance coming from Michigan all the way to the coast of South Carolina. And so it should be able to be funded with some of the federal highway funds, maybe that they have designated for the next number of years. We just have to wait and let our guys up in Washington figure that out for us. But it will take federal and state funding, and although in 2017, I believe it is, and 2021, some of the funding from Horry County to pay for our ride plan, Ride 1, comes to the end. We will have funded that, and we will have more money coming in from our hospitality. I don't think that money needs to be spent in other counties if it's generated in Horry County. So we can finish paving what we need to in Horry County with that money without changing any taxes, without it costing any more than it is right now. And that would go a long way, but I don't agree that we should spend it outside of Horry County.
Okay, quickly, let's try to keep it to no more than a minute here. And you've touched on it already. Do you want to add any more?
I think we should get Harold Suggs to pay for it. Harold's got lots of money. He's the king of lords.
Now, let's get serious. Come on.
All right. Honestly, what I think is the money that we sent to Columbia, we really need to revisit how it's being spent. I know that we're a donor county to a certain extent, and I would like to know why it is that all the money that's generated here is going down to get Charleston a new bridge and all these other folks. And as I said, I have not looked it up down to the last penny, but if you've been down to Charleston, they've got a beautiful bridge. And I don't know why, with all the money that Myrtle Beach sends up to Columbia, why you would think that the folks up there in Columbia would try and make it a little easier for us to send more money to them. So I think that we could definitely make that happen without too much effort.
Okay, and we'll hand it down to Mike for his ideas on funding.
We've all heard the statement that we don't have a taxing problem, we have a spending problem. We spend way too much money. And we keep asking how we're going to pay for I-73. There's plenty of jobs out there building the highway. If we could divert the money that we're wasting in other areas and get it out there. And as they said, this goes across state lines. It goes, from Michigan all the way down. It's going to take representatives, and we need to think about that when we're putting our representatives in Washington. Make sure they understand what their priorities are. And when they come back with other priorities than I-73, if we all agree that that's where the money needs to be spent, we need to let them hear that. So they need to be going there with a message of 7, that this is where this money needs to go. And we need to start working internally as a state from the bottom up, start looking at the waste, cutting the waste, and get the money put where it needs to be, not somewhere else.
In order to get this highway done, this is coming through other counties too. We're going to have to form a coalition. Team up to get this done. That way, if we team up, we used to have a REACE program that had 13 counties. Now we're down to 9. If we team up with other counties to get this money, we can secure the money we send to program. We don't need a pay rate.
Okay, and I think that finishes the funding on I-73. Tied right on the back of that, I know I am so concerned and sitting here looking at y'all that y'all gonna, 2 of you at least will probably go to Columbia to represent us here. We have worked so hard in Horry County to pass school choice, not only in Horry County, but we've done it across the state. I want to know if all of y'all are in favor of school choice, what would you do different to ensure that when session starts in 2013 that y'all can get a school choice bill passed and not let it go to a committee and sit there and die? And we'll start with Liz on that one for the first one. It's just so discouraging for us sitting here at home.
Amen.
Reading these bills, that it gets passed on the House or the Senate, or it goes to a committee and it goes to die. What can you do to help us if you go to Columbia to help up there?
One thing I've always done for the 16 years I was in politics is do the best I can to tell the truth from my perspective. And the truth of the matter is, from my perspective, there's not a whole lot one person can do. What I would do is start with the freshman class going in and assess right away who's on my team when it comes to that issue. Because you have to form your own coalition to start with the freshman group and then start each one with their own delegation, and you sort of try to multiply yourself that way. One person can't do anything in Columbia.
Okay.
But you work as a team.
Thank you. Mike?
I couldn't agree more. The whole fact of the freshman class going in there, if you don't find like-minded individuals, we're not going to get a whole lot done. So exactly what Liz said is we would have to find folks that are like-minded, and we still have to get past the Senate. I mean, the House pretty much is locked in on this, but the Senate is going to be a tough nut to crack. And that's where you folks would be involved, because if the people of this state don't get a hold of their legislators and their representatives, it's not going to happen. We can go up there with all the high-minded ideas and all the great things that we want to accomplish, but if you folks and the people that are in the county and in the state don't get on the phone and don't send your emails, the folks in the House can do all they want, but the Senate is definitely going to block that. So that would be my suggestion, that we can make it happen, but it's going to take everybody getting involved.
I think school choice, as well as many other issues, have been put to bed before we ever heard about them. They spend time on these things knowing full well it's never going to go anywhere, knowing what the end is going to be. If we take a look at the gridlock we have in Washington as well as in this state, the Democrats, Republicans, 2 parties are not going to agree on anything. Maybe changing the name of a bridge, naming a river, something, a section of it. But as far as anything real that we need right now, I'm not seeing it. And so this issue or any other issue, I think all of us owe it to you to make sure that we bring back the message on what's going on. And if certain individuals are blocking this stuff and not going to let us get out there where it needs to be seen, everyone here needs to know that. Horry County should be working together as a team. And if there's somebody that's not willing to be part of that team and represent you, we need to make sure you know who that is, and all of you need to help us get rid of them. Doesn't matter how long they've been down there or what kind of comp they've had in the past. If they're not letting us get this done, we need to move on from them. And the same goes with the Senate. I sit here and think if something is passed early on in the House and it sits in the Senate for 30 days, We ought to know about it. You ought to know about it. And the pressure should start. Why let our representatives go down to Columbia and work so hard on stuff and pass stuff when the Senate already knows they're not going to take it up? What kind of business would run that way? What kind of county, state would run that way? We've got to get the message out here. We need to get the voters involved in replacing the people that are the roadblocks.
Like I said before, we know who's in office in that Senate. And we know who's on his back. It's going to take us. It's going to take us to put the right people in there. The right people to know what's right. The right people that know that we want the bang for our buck. Right now, we're not getting it. Until we got our money, we got our job to do November 6th.
Okay, Kevin?
I'm not quite as negative about it. I've worked over the years when I was on council to build relationships with people in Columbia, with our own delegation. I think rather than being negative, just work with the delegation that we have, and there are new people going to Columbia. So things are going to change, things are going to shake up. And there's always the risk of something being held up in the Senate or something inadvertently happen like that. But I'm not quite as negative. I think it's an opportunity for us to get school choice passed, and I'm willing to work to make that happen.
And I wasn't trying to be negative, just realistic, because the hurdle is high. That's not to say that it can't be done, and I think it should be done. And I think the people of South Carolina are going to see to it that it is done. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, new question, and we'll start with Mike Conway. Mike, as you are aware that the sound money resolution passed in Horry County at the convention, we'll start with Mike Rael again up here. You're all aware that Governor Haley vetoed, I forget, the millions of dollars from the budget last week. What do y'all think? And I have my opinion, but I want to hear how y'all feel about. She vetoed $300,000 for the North Myrtle Beach Museum. Would you work to bring home special monies for projects in Horry County like that? Or would you suggest that we use those funds for a rainy day fund?
Well, I'm not so sure I would designate it for a rainy day fund, but I do think there are other projects. We keep talking about I-73. I hear projects out there that when people tell me they're so important to them and their street, their neighborhood, I question the long-term plan there. I-73 is going to bring a lot to all of us. It's going to help us build our neighborhoods, our counties. We can't leave this road out front here being the only way in and out of here. We need other support. We have to have a long-term plan, like a business plan. If you're going to grow your business, you have to know what you're going to do in the future and how you're going to pay for it. And so I don't disagree that we need to evaluate every project very strictly, but we need to have a reason, not rainy day, at my will someday, but these dollars will not be spent here because we need them to go here instead. It needs to be very specific.
Okay.
How many government programs do we have? There's a bunch of them. Too many. We got to cut. If we're not getting money out of what we spend for these programs, we got to cut. If it's not paying us anything back, we got to cut. I know it sounds harsh. Real is real. If we're not in our means, we're not in our means. Government is not designed to run a business. Never will. You give them your car to use. They're not going to take care of it because it's not theirs. If they have to pay for what they get, they'll take care of it. Private business is better off running, businesses other than government. That's all I have to say.
One of the things that I found out pretty quick after I got on county council was that certain funds, road funds, can't be used to give employees raises. I don't know how that funding process works in Columbia, but it's easy to say sometimes, well, instead of doing a museum in Myrtle Beach, why not give the teachers raises? I don't know where that funding source comes from, first of all. And yes, sometimes you have to I'll say a project like in Myrtle Beach, you have to go after those funds because you got a lot of constituents who are, I'll say Tracy Edge, for example, was probably being lobbied pretty hard for those funds, and those funds, if Tracy did not go after those funds and get them for that, it doesn't mean they would go to a rainy day fund. It might go to something in one of Hugh Levin's projects in Florence. So you have to kind of be careful, understand the philosophy of that, of not wasting money or report barrel projects. But at the same time, you do have to be conscious that if those funds don't come to your district, they're going to go to somebody else's district.
Kevin had actually two good points. You can't, the money's not all in one pot, but you can spend it however you wish. There are different pots for different particular reasons, and you can't cross the lines. And we found that in county government, and I'm sure that's true in Columbia as well. I saw on Facebook the other day where Tracy claimed that North Myrtle Beach had gotten more state funding for projects over the last handful of years than any other town in South Carolina, which I was amazed at. And I put a comment on there that said, boy, you have really learned how to work the system. Now, the people in North Myrtle Beach love that. I have mixed feelings. I will work hard to do what I can to get Horry County's fair share when it comes to what's being spent around the state out of whatever funds there are to spend things around the state. At the same time, I want to be fiscally responsible and take care of the important things first. Museums are not the most important thing on the list. But on the other hand, if that money's going to go to somebody else's pet project, I'd be fighting like crazy for it to be my pet project. So without knowing the details, it's hard to say.
Well, I'd be for a balanced budget for the state. That would be period. Then we need to get a priority list, just like Mike Robbins says. We need to have an overall plan, and whether a $300,000 grant or whatever you want to call it for a museum, when that money could be spent somewhere else. Guess what, folks? It might be spent in another county where it would make more sense for that money to be spent in another county. The problem we have is the way the system is set up. Everybody's in there to try and get their own little piece of the pie, and that is not benefiting the state as a whole. And that's why I would do my best representing Horry County. But we have to fundamentally change this whole concept where I'm going to go up there and I'm going to be proud that I've got the most funding for my little speck of South Carolina over somebody else. That whole concept has got to be, we have to start working on changing that mindset with our legislators. So I don't think that that's something.
We'll start next. First question to Bill Wiegand, I believe is up. You all know that we have serious problems with our voter records, not only in Horry County, we've got serious problems throughout the entire state. Have you got any suggestions you could come up with to help us clean up our voter records here in Horry County and in South Carolina, and go to Columbia and put some kind of checkpoints or something in place that when a person deceases, they get taken off that roll? I was talking with a gal from down in Somerville, and they were working on a project. The ones that were highlighted that came out on this list, it says you can look at one address. They have 8 people with different names that live in that same address. It's voter fraud, it's got to be. But when she checked it, it was actual nursing facility, a nursing home. Half of them had already died, and they were still receiving absentee ballots. So wonder who's completing the absentee ballots. But we need some help to clean up our voter records. And I just want to hear, just briefly, if you have some ideas or suggestions.
Alan Clemens found over 10,000 ballots with dead people our last election.
But what can we do to clean it up?
We need poll watchers.
Well, you got poll watchers, but...
We don't have them covering all our precincts. That's the job. It's a tremendous job to sit there all day. We don't police these people. Put your foot down, it's going to continue. I mean, I sat at Whittemore and Conway one year, that last time. That was a train wreck. They did whatever they wanted to. Took people to move. Some of them got a car where they didn't even have to pass their driver's license or anything. And here we got our own federal government fights. You saw that on the news? That they don't have to show a picture ID. That's wrong. We need to fight this to the tooth and nail.
Thank you.
If we can get the Justice Department to leave us alone, I think the legislation with the voter ID that was introduced in Columbia and then blocked by the Justice Department would take care of that. And as far as I'm concerned, if you can't come up with a picture ID to vote, it's pretty sad. You don't need to vote.
Picture ID is a necessity. I also think that there needs to be a bill introduced. If there hasn't already, I'd be glad to do that. It says whenever someone dies and they get a death certificate, that list goes directly to the voter registration office so the name is taken off. And to backtrack, there needs to be some money designated for each county to have someone either hired or already in the county employee that would go through the past years of death certificates. It'll take about a year, but you can do a lot in a year to just check those names off.
I'm not for bigger government, I'm not for more spending, but I'll tell you what, our South Carolina Election Commission is a disaster.
Amen.
If we wouldn't be sitting up here if there was any kind of oversight. The different parties submitted their candidates, and there was nobody from the Election Commission that checked it. Every one of these folks sitting up here, and probably people that were involved in reorganization, know that when we called to get people involved in reorg, there were some people that were not on those rolls, those walking lists. So what we need is a serious oversight and audit of all of our voting rolls that are in existence right now, and we need accurate lists. I received 3 different lists just trying to verify our signatures, and every one of those lists had different people on it. Same people, same election commission, sent out the information, 3 different lists, all 3 different. So we have to, we have to really look at this. With the voter ID, I think that's a must. We must have that. But we need to have somebody go through and look through these voting records and clean this mess up.
Voter ID is absolutely essential. We have to continue to push that. The other thing, though, here, this is a broken process. And I feel pretty comfortable after what we've been through saying that our processes are broken from the top level all the way down to where we sit tonight. And when a process is broken, it's expensive. There's plenty of room for error. I saw in Indiana today where they paid more in unemployment benefits than we're entitled, another 50% overpayment. The processes are broken. I came from a business background and I was involved in mergers and acquisitions. We paid for those mergers by going in and reviewing the processes of these companies all the time. It wasn't about laying people off, it was about fixing what was broken. And you could pay for these process reviews and for these corrections simply by what was laying on the table, the low-hanging fruit. There is so much low-hanging fruit in this state, in every process we touch, that could be taken care of and pay for this stuff, clean it up, create jobs, reduce the size of government. This is a top-down process review. Everything we touch has to be reviewed. People have to get serious about fixing things.
All righty, and I think we are over to Kevin for the next question to start with. South Carolina has decided, I believe at this point, not to extend its Medicaid rolls with this new Obamacare that's coming out. Do you agree with that decision or disagree with that decision? Or what is your take, or how do you feel on extending the Medicare rolls?
Extending the Medicare rolls? Well, there's people that need Medicare. A lot of people need it. But there's
Medicaid,
more.
Medicaid. Medicaid instead of Medicare.
Okay. Okay. Well, a lot of people need it, and then there are people that don't, so I think it needs to be evaluated. I'm not for any type of Obamacare, but whatever process there is out there, is going to have to be a determination made of whether that's needed, whether it's needed or not for that individual.
Okay, thank you.
There was an interesting article in the paper, and I don't remember which day, it was in the last few days, or maybe it was today, about, written in the Columbia State, about Haley and Loftus not wanting to take the 90% match in Medicaid, Medicare from the federal government. And I thought the point was well made that, and I'm absolutely opposed to Obamacare, but when it comes to the Medicare and the 90% match, that's an unbeatable match. And if you're starting from scratch with no match and you've still got all those people that need the aid, it made more sense, just dollars and cents and counting it up, it made more sense to take the match. But I don't know what strings there were on it, and I don't know what's going to happen to that match if Obamacare continues to roll, if he wins re-election. So I don't have a definitive answer. But I know that people need aid. I know that if we're going to have to pay it anyway to the federal government and they dole it out, I don't want to be left out and yet have to pay back for the rest of the states. So that's a tricky one, and there's not an easy answer.
Okay.
I would agree that it's not an easy answer. That's something that needs to be studied and that we need to look into. But I do know this. We had something called stimulus plan. We had a governor named Mark Sanford that was totally against it. He said it was going to cost the state $2 billion. Guess what? We ended up getting it. You know how much it cost the state? $2 billion. So I don't look at anything in the hope it's not a gift horse we're going to get here. If they're going to say they're going to cover this and match our funds, I guarantee you there's something that we're going to end up down the road that we may not know about that's going to come back and bite us in the backside. So I'd say we need to really look at that.
There is so much abuse in the Medicaid system today. I have had the opportunity over the last 6 years working with a lot of my employees to see how things are manipulated, where there's marriages but they're not marriages, where people live in the same house but they never get a certificate because of the benefits that come for the unmarried. We are abusing the system. Once again, it's the same topic. If we would go after the abuse and clean these things up, I think there's money around. As far as taking, money from Washington, I think that's very complicated. We need to make sure that we're not cutting off our nose to spite our face, as we all said. On the other hand, with everything that's been done here in the last few years, I've lost any trust I had that things would be done up front and right. Amen. So I think, again, I would want to know all the details. What does this mean long term? What are we committing to? What are our options? But the real issue is, again, I haven't seen a process yet that you couldn't tear apart, eliminate the waste, and pretty much pay for it. There seems to be plenty of money out there. We're just spending it the wrong ways and giving it to the wrong people. There's plenty of abuse out there. That's really the issue, I think, with this one. So the answer to the question, I'd be careful about taking that, but I want to read into it a lot more and understand, as with everything else, what are the strings.
He's extended this why he wants to get elected. He knows he's stepped in the ball. You know what? He's trying everything he can do to get this thing extended. But there, we've got to look at people that really need this. Who's going to be the one to say, hey, you don't get this? Who's going to pull the plug? That's got to be looked at. That's a tender subject. I think it needs to be looked at real sharp. We've seen what this fellow's done. We need to act accordingly.
Okay, the next one we'll start with Elizabeth County, sustainable development. Do you support comprehensive land use practices such as smart growth, visioning, sustainable development? It all ties back in to Agenda 21, and I think we'll start with Mike on this one.
Well, I don't really know a whole lot about what you're discussing right now, but I will tell you this. When I lived in Florida, we had something that was called impact fees. That means like what's going on in Carolina Forest right now, that wouldn't be happening on the taxpayers' dime right now, doing those road improvements. When all those homes were going up, those builders should have been putting that infrastructure in before it even came down the line. So I would be heavily leaning towards any kind of infrastructure improvements or anything like that before any development went in, that we did a long-term plan and made sure that if the infrastructure wasn't properly there, that the developers would make that happen.
All righty. And then we'll Mike.
The growth in these areas has to be paid for somehow. Take a look at what's happening right now with the schools. You know, we keep expanding, throwing more schools in, and everybody says that's the right place to spend the money. And I don't disagree with that, but what we're throwing in those areas is bricks and mortar. There's more to infrastructure. We have to think about a lot of other things that get involved there. One of the things that bothers me the most is regulation. We are way over-regulated. It stifles business. So while I look at this and say we need to be careful and make sure that our rights as property owners, as business owners, are not being taken away from us, we also have to make sure that we don't step on the toes of the people that we're going to serve. And I think 21 does a little bit of that, creates more problems than we really need.
Right.
Agree with that.
Or if someone develops property, I think that should be up to that. And there's a lot of people that like that. And that's fine. If you want to gear your development toward that, if it's like Oak Island where there's no cars, it's just golf carts, if you want to do that, that's fine. But I don't want the government telling me I've got to do it.
Okay, good.
For 16 years on county council, I dealt with, and it was sometimes very difficult, growth and development and sustainable growth and smart growth and rampant growth. Growth and development is a county issue. Each county has its own rules, its own planning commission, its own council. I'm going to lick on my plate at all.
Very good. I think the next question, we'll probably start with Mike Rydell. These are kind of straightforward. What is your major goal and objective to want to go to Columbia to represent this district, and also your qualifications that would qualify you to do that?
That was a direct question. I could have answered that 4 or 5 months ago, probably in a sentence. But after what I've seen here over the last 6 months, we've got a lot of cleaning up to do. And I really believe that any of us that are going down there need to make it our goal to expose what we see that is wrong. That when we're not there representing the people as elected, we need to bring that back and make sure people understand that. And that we should not be the silent minority down there. I'm not going down there to get reelected. I'll just say that right up front. And if after 2 years, the powers that be decide they don't like me down there and raise enough funds to throw me out, I think people out here realize I was doing my best while I was down there, and they heard well from me. So I think right now when I look at it, I'm going down there not to be someone that is overlooked and pushed aside and doesn't get anything done. And I think that'll come with a lot of pressure. How do I think I could have an impact in that area? What makes me any different than anybody else? Prior to coming down here 7 years ago, I worked in a public utility. I was there for 28 years. I started at the bottom of that company as a meter reader and worked my way up through as an executive. As I stated earlier, I went around, we did mergers and acquisitions. I did labor negotiations for a good 10 years of that. Negotiated 10, 14 contracts a year. My job was to go after theft, fraud, corruption. And example, the last opportunity I had, I went to New Jersey. The budget in New Jersey when we went there was about $134 million, $136 million. We cut that to $94 million in 18 months. There were no layoffs with that. That was waste. Those are unbelievable numbers. And yet I have all the books, all the boxes to show. Here's how we did it. We went through the processes. We challenged people. We asked if these things were necessary. And in that particular case, there were a lot of contracts that had to be renegotiated. And that was my job as well. That young lady sitting in the back will tell you one of the hardest things was we were coming back from vacation and we get phone calls that our homes are being evicted. That the unions were out front, there were signs out there, marching up and down, yelling things at the house. They weren't happy with change. And sometimes change is difficult. But I'm not a stranger to going for it. I'm not a stranger to doing the right thing. And I have no qualms with going to Columbia and fighting for what I believe is right, for what I believe you sent me there for. And I will do that.
I'm born in this area. I've seen what's going on in this area. I'm extremely unhappy with what's going on in Columbia. Do we need more attorneys in Columbia? We need people that know what we want to get done. Small business is the backbone of our country. And when you hurt that, you're hurting our country. We need this fair tax. I'm a firm believer in it. If you don't know enough about it, read it, get on the internet, figure out about it, because it's all about you. That's going to help us keep business in this area. It's going to help our country. And it's a trickle-down effect. If we don't take care of this and nip this in the bud, we've lost our country.
I was born and raised here, lived here my whole life. I think this county needs jobs. I think it needs I-73. I have a vested interest. I have 2 daughters. One's getting ready to go to college in August. The other one's a sophomore in Conway High School. I don't want them to have to move to Charlotte or New York to find a job. I want them to be able to find a job here and raise their family here like I've lived my entire life. And in order to do that, we've got to have the roads, we've got to have the infrastructure to lure business here. And if I'm fortunate enough to go to Columbia, I will work with the delegation and the entire legislature to make that a reality.
Horry County is an amazing place, and South Carolina has incredible potential, but we continue to be an embarrassment politically to the rest of the country. I'd like to help see that we don't do that anymore. I would like to, I don't have a law degree, but I've got good common sense. Common sense and uncommon service. Because customer service, constituent service is also something that I honed as well as I could for 16 years on county council. The other thing I would do that I haven't seen anyone do yet, it is terribly difficult for us to find out in Horry County what in the world is going on politically in Columbia. The Sun News can't afford a writer to keep up with it. The small weekly papers certainly can't. So in one of my past lives, I was a writer. I wrote magazine articles. I majored in English. I would propose to the Sun News and to the weeklies that I write a weekly column on what is going on in Columbia. What are things that are going to affect us directly that we need to have a say in, so you need to tell your neighbors to talk to your council members and your representatives in Columbia. But just to let the people who live here get a much better idea, not only of what's going on up there, but on how our team, the Horry County team, is working together and what we're doing up there for the good of the people that live here.
Well, I'd just like to echo some of the sentiments of the other folks up here. I think we are woefully under common sense. It doesn't seem to exist in any of the things that I've seen. From the paperwork that I've had to deal with to just our legislators in general. So I think just being a businessman and someone that lives out in the rural part of our county, where there are people that believe in Jesus Christ, that believe in their family, and that believe that America is not dead, that America is not totally lost, and those values that I share with those folks and with you, I'm going to take those to Columbia. And as Mike said, there are going to be folks that are probably not going to be totally agreeable with what I feel is going to happen. I'm going to work with people But I'm also going to dig my heels in when I see something that is glaringly against my beliefs. I'm going to stick to those beliefs. And I'm going to work with the folks here in Horry County to get the information out, just as Ms. Liz said, so that we do have a working relationship with our county council, with our representatives, so that the folks do know what's going on and what's happening in Columbia.
This is going to be just a quick answer. I know several of you have mentioned fair tax. Are you in favor of fair tax, flat tax, what kind of tax? And we'll just brief answer on that one.
Fair tax.
Fair tax. All right.
I want to say no tax, but I think a fair tax is a good direction. What I will also say though is every time I look at these, I have more questions than answers. And be careful what you ask for. Understand what you're getting into and how it's going to affect you. The tax structure today needs fixed. We need to lower the structure across the board and stop wasting money where we don't need to be spending it. So taxes have got to come down. We need to figure a better way to distribute taxes and not burden the people who can create the jobs and grow this county. I think there's a solution somewhere in between the flat and fair.
Okay.
Well, I'm just for less taxes all the way around. A lot of times people they look at the rich man as being as an individual, but a lot of the tax breaks that are out there are for businesses that provide jobs, and if they don't have some sort of an incentive, people lose jobs. I don't know what the answer is, fair tax, flat tax. I just hate the word tax.
And if there's one thing that's broken in South Carolina, it's how the state taxes. There are exemptions, hundreds of exemptions. It's just unfair all the way around. 2 years ago, they put together this grand group to study it and to give recommendations on how to fix it. When the group finally did their assessment and they handed in the recommendations, what did they do? They stuck it on the back shelf and they didn't do a thing. So that's something that needs to be looked at again. Government does too much. Politicians do too many things for show. Do it, do the right thing, and then follow through until it's fixed for the good of the people.
I would be in favor of the fair tax, and or if we had to start with a flat tax, that would be fine. I mean, we all know that there's an underground economy out there. Everything from people that are getting paid cash under the table, that are folks that are drug dealers, that whole economy, those folks do not pay their fair share.
We're going to open it up to some questions from the audience in just a moment, but I wanted to ask one thing. I know that a lot of groups and clubs, we start out and we have always wanted to have our legislators to come in back here at home in Horry County. And I'd like a commitment from all of you, and then you talk to the other legislators around here, that you would commit to meeting with us all in a group 2 or 3 times a year. Come back here and tell us what y'all done. Tell us what you've encountered. Let us know what we can do to help. And we'll certainly let y'all know what we think you need to do up there. But would all of y'all agree to a commitment to having those meetings? And it could be a meeting that we would have of every person in Horry County, whoever wanted to come. It's not a partisan thing. But I think it's very important that we hear from our legislators on an ongoing basis, and we've not done enough of that. We may have one to come to a meeting, but we need you all together so we can hear all of that. Y'all all up to that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main reason I'm running for this seat is because I felt that the gentleman that represented our district was not involved enough in our community. So absolutely, and I also like the fact you said nonpartisan, because even though we are technically Republicans, we're now independent Republicans, we represent everyone in our district. So yes, absolutely, I think that's a terrific idea.
Very good. Okay, do we have some questions from the group out here that we've not touched on that somebody would like to ask? Larry?
Yeah, there's a couple of things, but I'm going to try to narrow it down to one here. Y'all all know me, and you know I'm big on controlling documents. Now, most everybody in this room, and I'm certainly all of the candidates, have read the United States Constitution. But what I want to know is, like, for example, we were talking about Medicare, Medicaid expenses, funding, and all that. How many of people are aware that the South Carolina Constitution mandates that the state of South Carolina is responsible for the medical care of every resident in the state? Not just citizen, but every resident in the state. Now that fact, that the Constitution of South Carolina says that, it has a binding effect on anything the legislature tries to do. Now, and the other thing, you were talking about funding, the voter registration and stuff and all. How many of y'all have read the 1965 Voting Rights Act that overrides the state laws that we have had and have on the books about our voting registration and everything? That 1965 Voting Rights Act overrides everything we've done, and it does to this day. That's why this ID thing went to the Justice Department and all. That's why our redrawn district lines goes to the Justice Department. How many of y'all on that table have read the South Carolina Constitution and have read the 1965 Voting Rights Act?
All right, was there a question in there other than asking if we were aware of it?
Just asking if they were.
Okay, good points, Larry, good points. Joe?
Have they read it? Can they answer that question?
No.
Okay, you want to know if y'all have read it or were you aware of it?
I have.
Okay.
I've read part of the state constitution, but it is not exactly, there have been amendments made to that constitution, some things that have been added to that constitution, it's like reading a mystery date. It's a very unusual document.
Okay, any other comments on that, Liz, Kevin, Bill, Mike?
Obviously, we read through our Constitution as a citizen. South Carolina bits, parts, and pieces, the 65 voters.
All right. Joe Dugan?
I'd like this question to go on the record, if we can do that, Janet. And I'd like to ask each of you that if you are elected to our State House in Columbia, would you pledge to expose corruption when you see it?
Okay, who's got the microphone?
Yes.
Kevin says yes.
Absolutely, by the time that arm goes on my shoulder, absolutely. Because you know what they want.
We absolutely have to do that every time. And we have to start getting support from the people who are in legislation, from the people who are elected officials, to pursue that when we find it and hold people accountable. And I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, and Liz?
During my 8 years on my 16 years on county council, but the first two terms as a council division, district elected official, I called on the FBI and SLID and the Ethics Commission on my own council members on more than one occasion. Didn't get anywhere a single time, but I did it, and I would continue to do that.
Well, Mike, I should make my question clear. Would you expose corruption to the people that elected you?
Absolutely.
So that we could follow up on it.
Absolutely, with no doubt and with no reservations.
Thank you.
All right, who else has some questions? Surely we have some more.
I need to comment on one more thing.
All right, Okay. Yes, George.
One thing that I would do that Alan Clemens has done is Facebook. And I have learned more from Facebook reading Alan's post than about what's going on.
On term limits, I'm very aware, as some of you have mentioned, you don't have any impact at all when you go up there as new people. And I want to suggest that if we get all of the independents across the state to run on one slate, and that is get up there, change the rules to take the authority of the Speaker of the House out as far as control of committees is concerned. As long as he has got that, who is an incumbent obviously, has got that control, you new guys just don't have a chance. And so that's just my suggestion. And I don't think it's probably new to any of you. I like to hear what Mike had to say, especially, and Connie. that regard. And that's basically it. Let's get the non-incumbents a voice.
Yes, Carlene?
Hi. Yes, I know that we are all so maybe afraid of this election because not just only for you, for the the president too, but I was wondering about how it is why the Electoral College really makes the choice more than the popular vote. Will you be in favor of it, or what are you in favor of, either an Electoral College or the popular vote? And what can we do about that, or change it? What would you change for the state also? I don't know how to word that, but you don't know what the Electoral College.
To change the Electoral College, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Would you, or what would you alter or change? Do any of y'all have any suggestions on that?
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't change it at all, because what's going to happen is then you're going to have certain states that have lower population, their vote won't count whatsoever. So I'd be totally against that.
South Carolina has a greater voice with the Electoral College than if we went by population alone. There's some towns that have more people in it than we have in this state.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm in favor of leaving it as is.
Let's leave it like it is. We've got to hold these people, you see what's happening?
Electoral votes something that came about because there was an unfairness based on state size locations. And it wasn't the perfect resolution, but it did help at the time. It's like everything else, from time to time it needs to be revisited, but right now I think it's necessary.
Okay, John, back in the back.
Yeah. You're going to have a great opportunity when you get up there, because you're not going to be a Democrat, you're not going to be a Republican. You're going to be a petition candidate. And when you get up there and you meet with your new class, you're going to have to declare whether or not you want to stay as an independent, which may be the wise thing to do, or you may want to be a Republican, which I presume you want to be. So you have to mull that over and see what you want to do. And I would suggest to you to get the best advantage that you possibly can when you make your choice. And when you make your choice, you should really concentrate on your area, on your legislative area, because a lot of problems are right here in Horry County that has to be addressed in the state. There's a lot of things that are going on in the state today, as you all are aware, which are taking rights away from people. With the bank accounts, now, the federal government, you have nothing to do with it, I realize that. But with the federal government, they're telling you, and they're telling the people that are getting Social Security or other governmental checks, that they have to wire them right to their accounts. They no longer are going to be issuing checks. And with that, they want to know their Social Security number and other personal data of these individuals. Again, it's a scary thing, taking away the rights. So you're going to have an awesome responsibility when you get up there, as well as you're going to have a key role. So just don't commit yourself, in my opinion, to what one party or the other, because you're representing everybody as a petition candidate. And how do you look upon that?
That is a very good point, John, and one I frankly had not thought about. So, Mike, you want to address that first?
Sure. I've been voting, registered, I'll say, as a Republican since I was 19. And while that didn't always control my vote, I will say it influenced me. I have a set of principles and a background, business background, and other beliefs. What I see in this country today is not two parties that duke it out. I see two kids in a sandbox. There's only one toy. And neither one of them is going to let that toy get on the other side. And so I've thought about this a lot with what happened with us in the election process here and how we are petition candidates. We're not there as Republicans or Democrats. We are there as elected officials. And I like that. I like being an elected official by the people to represent the people, not a particular party along party lines. And I've been mulling over this for months now, and all you can imagine that, I'm sure the rest have. That doesn't mean my principles change. I think all of you that know me know that I'm a conservative. I believe in smaller government. But it gives me, I think, an edge. And we may be freshmen, but we are petition candidates, and we do not have to declare one side of the aisle or the other. What we do have to do is vote on every issue that comes up. And I want to look at every issue and study every issue, and that's what I used to do for a living. And say that this issue can't go forward because you put this on it. Without this, this is a great bill. But giving you these feathers here, that doesn't work for me. So I think it takes me out of the party lines, and I think we all should really consider that an opportunity for us, not a disadvantage. And I think the Lord works in mysterious ways. If we were to write a book going back to January 1 till today, I couldn't have, in my greatest fantasies, given you where we're at today. But I think it is a blessing in disguise, and I look forward to it.
I've been out talking with many people. I'll take one neighborhood. I've been all over Horry County, knocking on doors. And I'm going to tell you what, these people are hurting. When you talk to them, they want to know the story, and I give it to them. Here are these people, they're hard-working people, just like you and me, that's seen all this hurt come from this, this particular government, If I shake your hand and I tell them I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something. Now, if you're going to be a Republican and you want somebody on the Democratic side, you're going to be a Rhino, vice versa. I might just stay independent for a while because I know what I want to do for my people. And they put me in the aisle, they sign my petitions. And I'm going to look out for them. I don't want somebody to tell me, well, are you a Republican or Democrat? I might just stay independent right now. Because the Republican Party left me out in the dark. I grabbed the reins and I'm coming out.
John, I agree with you. That is a good strategy. You can use that to benefit the county and the people that you represent when you're in Columbia. The thing about it is, I'm a little bit concerned about, as we're running to get elected, which party we align or are we independent, because I think last count I heard about 60-some% voted straight Republican in the last election. So that's a concern. There's going to be a lot of people vote that will vote straight ticket and will not vote for any of us. I mean, 500-600 votes can win this thing for each seat, and that's it's kind of a tough decision as to how you want to align yourself, Republican or independent or whatever. Once you get to Columbia, you can definitely use it to your advantage. But right now, you might be shooting yourself in the foot by not aligning yourself with the party and I've represented Horry County for 8 years as a Republican, so those beliefs and principles are instilled in me, and just kind of have to play both sides of the fence.
My parents were Republicans in Horry County when Republicans weren't cool. I still have a gold border button, a little yellow button from those days. Today, though, I call myself conservative because particularly on the national level and to some extent on the state level, the Republicans are doing things that I don't particularly agree with. Amen. I don't agree at all with the Democrats, but so having an I by my name kind of fits my personality anyway. But also, and that was a good question, John, and it's one I've already thought about. I have two good friends in Columbia that are in the legislature, Hilda Cobb Hunter and Yancey McGill. Both of them have great seniority. Both of them are Democrats. I want to work with them as much as I can to have the influence I can. And Yancey's in the Senate. But I'm going to do what I can to get whatever influence I can through our senators and through Yancey McGill in the Senate. In the same way, working with the Republicans is a piece of cake. So I will play it as best it can be played.
I would like to say that I believe in the Republican platform. The Republican Party has a fantastic platform. Unfortunately, most of the party doesn't pay any attention to that platform. So as far as being an independent or a Republican, first I'd like to see if I can even get my name on the ballot. That's kind of a little bit of a concern for